Prologue. The Map Beneath the Ashes. Philadelphia, 1781. The air was thick with gunpowder and rumor. In a crumbling tavern 2 streets away from the Continental Congress Hall, a dying courier whispered something that would never make it into the history books. "There's a map, not of land, but of truth," he gasped, clutching a leather pouch burned at the edges. "Washington doesn't even know." The young physician attending him, Dr. Nathaniel Greene, not related to the general, stared in disbelief as the courier pressed a blood-stained parchment into his hands. The markings were strange, symbols, coordinates, and names written in an archaic cipher, along with a seal that bore not the stars of the new republic, but the twin-headed eagle of an older empire. By dawn, the courier was dead, and Nathaniel Greene, a man of science and reason, had become the accidental keeper of a secret that could rewrite the birth of America. Chapter 1. A Republic of Shadows. When the Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776, the world saw a rebellion of ideals, freedom, democracy, and self-rule. But behind the curtain, another war unfolded, not for land or power, but for knowledge. Long before the first musket fired at Lexington, secret societies had taken root in both London and Philadelphia. The Invisible College, the Rosicrucians, and a small offshoot of the Freemasons, whose members believed that ancient knowledge from Alexandria had survived in coded form across the Atlantic. Most historians today dismiss this as myth, but Dr. Nathaniel Greene's diary, discovered in a locked chest in 1923, suggests otherwise. His writings revealed a hidden alliance between scholars, spies, and soldiers, men who carried not only muskets but ciphers, working to ensure that the new nation would not only be free, but enlightened. Chapter 2. The Courier's Last Ride. The courier's name was Thomas Avery, a name lost to history, erased from military records, perhaps deliberately. He had been part of the Shadow Post, a clandestine network that transported encrypted messages between Washington's camps. But on that October night, he carried something different, an object wrapped in oilcloth and sealed with wax. The object, according to Greene's later testimony, contained fragments of a colonial map overlaid with mathematical symbols, possibly derived from Sir Isaac Newton's unpublished studies on geometry and divine architecture. Avery never made it to his destination. His body was found near the Schuylkill River, throat cut clean. The only thing missing was his horse. The British blamed highwaymen. The Americans blamed loyalist spies. But Greene, after opening the pouch, realized someone else had been hunting that message, someone who understood its value. Chapter 3. A Hidden Republic. In 1781, America was not yet the unified nation we imagine today. States bickered, generals quarreled, and the treasury was empty. But amid the chaos, in candlelit rooms of Philadelphia, a parallel government took shape, the Committee of the Unwritten Constitution. Its members included a mathematician from Harvard, a French linguist exiled for heresy, and a printer from Virginia known only as H. Their goal, to design a blueprint for a republic guided not by kings or clergy, but by reason, using codes and ancient principles to structure human freedom. Dr. Greene's entry dated November 3, 1781, mentions his first encounter with them. They spoke not of liberty as passion, but as pattern, a sequence of symbols that, if arranged correctly, might unlock a future where no man ruled another. He was skeptical, until they showed him the second map. Chapter 4. The Second Map. Hidden beneath Independence Hall was a vault, not official, not even known to Congress. It had been dug during the British occupation by prisoners who were never seen again. The committee had discovered it months earlier through an anonymous letter signed only as Athenian, a code name traced back to Benjamin Franklin himself. When Greene descended into the damp passageway, he saw not gold or weapons, but mathematical diagrams etched into the stone walls. Pentagons, ratios, and patterns eerily similar to those found in Masonic lodges across Europe. At the center was a brass plate inscribed in Latin, Libertas in numeris. Freedom lies in numbers. Chapter 5. The Key Beneath the Compass. The brass plate was colder than the earth around it. Dr. Nathaniel Greene traced its edge with his fingertips, the metal worn smooth by time. The faint echo of dripping water filled the chamber. A lantern flickered, casting trembling shadows on symbols that seemed almost alive. Libertas in numeris, he whispered again. Freedom lies in numbers. Behind him, the mathematician, Professor Elias Withrow, adjusted his spectacles and replied softly, "It's more than a motto. It's a formula." Greene turned. A formula for what? Withrow unrolled a pinned parchment filled with precise ink lines, geometric sequences, circles intersecting at ratios of 1.618 to 1, the Bolden ratio. For a new world, Withrow said, a world structured on balance, not power. The hidden geometry of freedom. The Founding Fathers spoke of self-evident truths, but what if those truths were more literal, mathematically evident? The Committee of the Unwritten Constitution believed that liberty itself could be expressed as a sequence of harmonics, a structure underlying everything from government to architecture. Their inspiration came from ancient Alexandria, the library that had supposedly burned in 48 BCE, but fragments of its knowledge smuggled through Byzantium and later encoded into Masonic rituals had found their way into the hands of Franklin and others who saw in America a chance to resurrect not just political freedom, but intellectual resurrection. In the flickering light, Greene began to understand the brass plate was not merely an inscription, it was a cipher. The Cipher of Liberty. The symbols on the plate corresponded to letters from a forgotten dialect of Latin, modified through Greek numerals. Withrow explained that each coordinate represented not a place, but a principle. For example, the number 13 did not merely signify the 13 colonies. It stood for unity through division, many forming one. The number 33, common in Masonic legend, represented illumination through knowledge. The pattern at the plate's center matched the layout of Philadelphia's grid, suggesting that the city itself had been designed as a living cipher. Greene realized with a chill that the architecture of the new republic might have been planned not by politicians, but by cryptographers. "We were never building a nation," Withrow said quietly. "We were building an equation." A visitor in the shadows. Later that night, as Greene returned to his lodgings near Market Street, a storm rolled over the city. Lightning illuminated the rooftops, and thunder cracked like cannon fire. As he closed his shutters, he noticed a figure across the street, a tall man in a dark cloak, standing perfectly still despite the rain. The man raised a gloved hand, not in threat, but in recognition, and then vanished into the alley. Moments later, a note slid under Greene's door. It was sealed with red wax, marked by a symbol he had seen only once before, the double-headed eagle of the Holy Roman Empire. He broke the seal with trembling hands. You are walking the same path as those who came before you. The map you hold is incomplete. Seek the clock beneath the bell. There was no signature. The bell that never rang. Greene knew immediately what it meant. The Pennsylvania State House, which would later be called the Liberty Bell. The bell had cracked during its first test ring years earlier and has since been replaced, but the original mechanism still sat beneath it, the clock beneath the bell. At dawn, Greene and Withrow made their way into the tower through a side entrance used by maintenance workers. Dust motes floated in the early light as pigeons fluttered overhead. Behind the wooden frame of the clock, they found a narrow gap, and within it, a lead cylinder, capped on both ends and wrapped in canvas. Inside, another parchment. This one was signed, B. Franklin. Franklin's hidden letter. The letter was written in Ben Franklin's unmistakable hand, elegant, concise, and strangely coded. Parts of it were written in mirror script, like Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks. It began plainly, "To those who find this after I am gone, freedom is not an act of men, but of mind. The laws of nature are the true constitution." Then the code began, mathematical notations interwoven with personal remarks. But one line, written in clear English, stood apart. "The true republic will not begin until the cipher is complete." Greene looked at Withrow, whose eyes shone with a mixture of awe and dread. "Do you understand what this means?" Greene asked. Franklin was building something parallel to the government, a republic within the republic. Withrow nodded slowly. "And someone didn't want it finished." The men who watched. That night, Greene began to notice patterns. A man with a tricorn hat appearing near every meeting place. Footsteps following him through fog-covered streets. Once, his notes had been rearranged on his desk, though his door remained locked. He began to suspect the committee had a traitor, or worse, that there were two committees, mirroring each other like twin reflections. One built for knowledge, the other for control. And somewhere between them lay the truth, the cipher that could define the future of the United States. Excerpt from Greene's diary, November 18, 1781. Franklin's message speaks of completion, yet we see only fragments. If liberty truly lies in numbers, then so too must tyranny. The same equations that set men free can bind them if inverted. I begin to fear that some have already turned the formula against us. To be continued. Next chapter, Chapter 6, The Double Eagle Society, where Greene discovers that the symbol on the letter ties not to Europe's aristocrats, but to an American faction within the Revolution itself, one that seeks to shape the new republic into an empire of its own. Chapter 6, The Double Eagle Society. The fire in the hearth had nearly gone out when Elias Withrow finally spoke. "You've seen it too, haven't you?" Dr. Nathaniel Greene nodded. "The eagle, two heads, one body, watching itself." Withrow sighed. "That's not just a symbol, it's an allegiance." They were sitting in Greene's quarters, their lanterns dimmed to slivers of light. A storm clawed against the windows. The air felt heavy, as if history itself were listening. The secret within the revolution. Most Americans believed the revolution was fought between patriots and loyalists, but there was a third current, invisible to the public eye. A group that called itself the Double Eagle Society. Its origin stretched back to the late 1600s, descendants of scholars who had once served under the Holy Roman Emperor. They called themselves architects of order. To them, chaos, rebellion, revolution, liberty was not to be feared, but guided. When Franklin, Jefferson, and Washington debated the birth of a republic, the Double Eagles debated how to control what came next. Their creed was simple. A nation without order will consume itself. A republic without masters will lose its soul. And they believed they were destined to be those masters. The hidden letter. The letter from Franklin had mentioned completion. But Franklin had been a member of both societies, the Freemasons and the Double Eagles. He walked a knife's edge between enlightenment and control, using knowledge from both sides. Greene reread the coded passage near the bottom of the parchment. One head looks east, the other west. Between them lies the river that will divide the world. At first, Greene assumed it was metaphor, but Withrow traced the cipher on the page and muttered, "The Delaware, or perhaps the Mississippi. It could be literal." If the cipher described geographic coordinates, then Franklin's river might mark a hidden site, a vault, or archive buried long before the war had even begun. Philadelphia, midnight. Greene couldn't sleep. He stepped out into the narrow street, mist curling around the cobblestones. From somewhere near the wharf, a bell rang once, low and distant. He followed the sound until he reached the edge of the Delaware River, where moonlight glimmered off the current. There, beneath the shadow of an abandoned warehouse, he saw the symbol again, the double-headed eagle painted in ash on the wall. As he leaned closer, the bricks shifted. A section of wall slid back slightly, revealing a hollow. Inside, a small tin box. Inside the box, another parchment, water-stained and half-decayed, but legible. To the keepers of the cipher, the society has taken root in both armies. When the war ends, so too will the illusion of choice. Greene's heart pounded. Both armies? That meant the Double Eagle Society had infiltrated both the Continental and the British forces. The war itself might have been their instrument. The Shadow War. What Greene uncovered in the weeks that followed could have destroyed the revolution from within. Evidence emerged of coded correspondences between high-ranking officers, symbols hidden in supply logs, minute alterations to Washington's battle maps. Someone was manipulating troop movements, ensuring that neither side ever gained a decisive advantage too quickly. The war, it seemed, had been sustained rather than won. The Double Eagles needed chaos long enough to reshape the colonies under their own design, a republic where knowledge flowed only upward to those deemed enlightened enough to wield it. Greene confided in Withrow. If they're truly in both camps, then every victory and defeat has been calculated. Precisely, Withrow said, face pale. Freedom by permission, liberty by leash. Franklin's true intent. But Franklin's coded writings hinted at something else, a counter-design. Hidden beneath the same symbols the Double Eagles used, he embedded contradictions, equations that, if solved, would collapse their structure. a mathematical rebellion. He called it the Cipher of Liberty. According to Greene's surviving diary, Franklin's cipher encoded not only political philosophy, but actual architectural instructions hidden into the design of government buildings, monuments, and street grids. If aligned correctly, they would form what Franklin called the pattern of the people, an invisible network meant to preserve balance through generations. The double eagles, however, sought to complete the cipher in their own image, twisting its message into one of control. Franklin's last letters to Greene were clear. Should they succeed, the Republic will be born blind. A betrayal from within. Late in December 1781, the Committee of the Unwritten Constitution gathered in secret, a meeting that would never be recorded. Greene arrived with Franklin's parchment in hand. Witherow was already there, along with the linguist Marianne Duval and a young engineer named Samuel Price. They argued for hours what to do with the cipher, whether to destroy it or publish it. But then Greene noticed something unsettling. The window latch was open. Snow had drifted onto the floor, forming a thin line leading to the back door. He whispered, "Someone's listening." Moments later, the door burst open. Two men entered, cloaked, carrying pistols engraved with the double eagle mark. "By order of the architects of order," one said, "you will surrender the cipher." The room erupted. Shots rang out. Witherow shouted for Greene to run. The last thing Greene saw was Witherow collapsing, a red stain spreading across his waistcoat. Greene escaped through the cellar, clutching Franklin's letter and the half-burned parchment from the Delaware. By morning, the committee was gone. The house was in ashes. Excerpt from Greene's diary, January 1782. The double eagles have taken Witherow. The cipher is no longer safe in Philadelphia. I will go west, where the rivers meet. Franklin's map points to the frontier. There, perhaps, liberty can begin again. Chapter 7. The River That Divides the World, in which Dr. Greene journeys into the untamed frontier beyond the Appalachians, following Franklin's cryptic map to a hidden archive that may hold the last piece of the Cipher of Liberty, while pursued by the ruthless Double Eagle Society. Snow still clung to the cobblestones when Dr. Nathaniel Greene left Philadelphia behind. He carried only what he could hide beneath his cloak: Franklin's letter, the half-burned cipher, and a flintlock pistol that had belonged to Elias Witherow. The city was still burning in places, not from battle, but from secrets being erased. Behind him, the bell tower loomed silent. The Liberty Bell, he thought bitterly, had never truly rung for the truth. The journey west. The road toward Lancaster was treacherous. Ice cracked beneath hooves, and the forest swallowed sound. Along the way, Greene met few travelers, deserters, farmers fleeing the winter, one Quaker wagon heading east. For days he followed Franklin's coordinates, scrawled in that strange mix of letters and numbers. Each mark seemed to point toward the convergence of rivers, the Allegheny, the Monongahela, and the newborn Ohio. The frontier. Franklin had written, "Where the waters divide, so too does destiny. Beneath the confluence, the cipher sleeps." Greene didn't yet understand what beneath meant, but he had no doubt now this was where Franklin had hidden the final piece. The river town. By early March 1782, Greene reached a settlement known as Fort Pitt, little more than a military outpost surrounded by muddy cabins. The locals spoke of raids, deserters, and ghosts of the war still drifting westward. He rented a cot at the Golden Pike Tavern, where an old innkeeper eyed his travel-worn coat. "You're either a spy or a fool," the man said. "No one rides west in this season unless chased." Greene gave a half-smile. "Then let's hope I'm the latter." That night, as he warmed his hands by the fire, he noticed a stranger watching him. A woman in a wool cloak, dark-haired, eyes sharp with intelligence. When he rose to leave, she spoke. "The Double Eagles are a day behind you." Greene froze. "Who are you?" She stepped into the firelight. "Marianne Duval. You thought I died in Philadelphia." The survivor. Marianne had escaped the burning house by sheer luck, hiding in a crawl space until dawn. She had followed Greene's trail west, guided by coded letters Franklin had left for her through intermediaries in the French embassy. "Franklin knew this day would come," she said. "He scattered the cipher across 3 hands, yours, mine, and one more." Greene frowned. "One more?" She nodded. "A man named Reinhold Keller, a mathematician, exiled from Vienna. He was Franklin's first tutor in ciphering. He's here, somewhere beyond the river." Greene exhaled slowly. "Then the cipher isn't lost." Marianne shook her head. "No, but if the Double Eagles reach him first, it's as good as destroyed." The chase begins. The next morning, the two left Fort Pitt under fog and drizzle. Greene rode ahead, Marianne close behind. They followed the riverbanks where trees grew black with frost. At dusk, they found signs, hoof prints, fresh, and a patch of red wax in the mud marked by the twin-headed eagle. They were being hunted. Marianne loaded her pistol. "We'll never outrun them." Greene looked ahead at the frozen river and pointed. "Then we go where they won't follow." He urged his horse onto the ice. The crossing. The river cracked beneath them like breaking glass, but it held, barely. Wind tore at their coats as they crossed. Halfway across, thunder echoed, musket fire. Bullets shattered ice behind them. Marianne fired back, her shot dropping one pursuer to the water. The rest hung back, unwilling to risk the crossing. They reached the far shore just as the ice gave way behind them, taking one of the horses and 2 Double Eagle riders with it. Greene turned, breath steaming in the cold. "The river divides the world," he muttered, "and it just saved ours." Reinhold Keller. They found Keller 2 days later, living in a weather-beaten cabin overlooking the confluence of the rivers. A skeletal man with a white beard, hands ink-stained, eyes burning with intellect. "So Franklin sent you," Keller rasped when they told him their story. "He always said the cipher would outlive him, but I never believed it would reach me." Greene unrolled the parchment and laid it beside Keller's own notes. At once, the old man's eyes widened. "This isn't just a code," Keller said softly. "It's architecture, geometry of governance, a map of balance." He placed Franklin's page over his own chart. Lines intersected, numbers aligned. When arranged correctly, the pattern revealed the outline of a star. Not a 5-pointed star, but a 13-point star, each representing one colony. At its center lay an inscription in Latin, "Populus est numerus," the people are the number. The cipher's meaning. Keller explained what Franklin had designed. Each colony, each vote, each branch of government, all structured according to harmonic ratios. The Constitution, Franklin believed, should mirror the laws of physics, checks and balances as counterforces,
liberty as equilibrium. The cipher encoded the mathematical logic of democracy, a system resilient not because of faith or power, but because of pattern. Marianne whispered, "He was trying to build freedom itself into the design of the nation." Keller nodded. "Yes, but he failed to hide it completely. The double eagles found fragments. They want to alter the ratios, to create stability without equality." Greene clenched his histos. "Then we finish what Franklin started." The cave beneath the river. Keller led them to a hidden cave near the waterline, accessible only at low tide. Inside, the air was damp and metallic. On the stone walls, Greene saw carvings, triangles, arcs, formulas, Franklin's handwriting. In the center stood a wooden chest sealed with lead. Inside lay the final fragment, a brass compass engraved with the same inscription as the first plate in Philadelphia, Libertas in numeris. The Cipher of Liberty was complete.
The attack. But before they could leave, voices echoed down the tunnel. Torches, boots, steel. The double eagles had found them. Gunfire lit the darkness. Keller fell first, struck through the chest. Marianne screamed but kept firing, covering Greene as he grabbed the compass and the documents. The tunnel shook as powder ignited, Keller's final act, setting fire to the archives rather than letting them fall into enemy hands. Greene dragged Marianne into the freezing water as the cave collapsed behind them, burying the Society's pursuers in stone. Excerpt from Greene's diary, April 1782. Keller is gone. The cipher lives. Franklin's truth is buried beneath the rivers, but not lost. Someday, perhaps, the nation will remember that freedom is not declared, it is designed. To be continued. Next chapter. Chapter 8. The Architects of Order, in which Greene and Marianne return east to deliver the completed cipher, only to discover that one of the founding fathers himself has joined the Double Eagles, and the nation's founding document is about to be rewritten from within. Chapter 8. The Architects of Order. The rivers were behind them, but the war wasn't. By the time Dr. Nathaniel Greene and Marianne Duval crossed back through the Appalachian foothills in the spring of 1782, the Treaty of Paris was already being whispered about. The world believed the revolution almost won. They knew better. The true war of symbols, ciphers, and minds was only beginning. The return to the city. Philadelphia smelled of damp brick and politics. Carriages rattled past half-rebuilt taverns. Soldiers without pay begged for bread. On every door, handbills announced, "Peace is near." But in the corner of each page, Greene noticed a watermark barely visible in lamplight, a faint twin-headed eagle pressed into the paper itself. "They've already come back," Marianne murmured. "No," Greene said, clutching the satchel that held Franklin's compass and notes. "They never left." The Congress behind the curtain. Inside the old Pennsylvania State House, the Continental Congress argued by candlelight. The delegates were tired, half-starved, desperate for stability. Stability was exactly what the Double Eagle Society promised. A new committee had been formed, the Architects of Order, tasked with drafting a permanent frame of government. Its chair was a name that stunned Greene when he heard it whispered by a clerk: Alexander Hamilton. He had been Franklin's protege once, brilliant with numbers, obsessed with balance and finance. Greene remembered seeing him years earlier at Franklin's gatherings, hungry for ideas that could turn chaos into structure. Now Hamilton stood before Congress with a proposal titled on the necessity of a central authority. He spoke not of freedom, but of efficiency, not of equality, but of order. Marianne leaned close as they watched from the gallery. "Listen to the phrasing," she whispered. "Equilibrium of powers, ratio of influence. He's using Franklin's own vocabulary." Greene felt his stomach tighten. He's using the cipher, but inverted. The night meeting. That evening they found Hamilton in a side chamber lined with books and ledgers. He dismissed his aides and turned as the door closed. "Dr. Greene," he said calmly, "you've traveled far to deliver what was already mine." Greene froze. "You're one of them." Hamilton's smile was small, exhausted. "One of whom? Patriots who wish for a nation that can stand? Yes, I am one of those." He motioned to the compass on Greene's belt. This meant to balance liberty with reason. But pure liberty is chaos. Look around. Empty coffers, mutinous soldiers, foreign debts. The double-eagle vision is not tyranny. It's survival. Marianne stepped forward. "Survival for whom? Those clever enough to read your equations?" Hamilton's tone hardened. "Someone must hold the center. You call it control. I call it architecture." Franklin's ghost. The old philosopher himself lay dying a few blocks away, lungs failing, but mind bright as ever. Greene visited him the next morning, heart heavy. Franklin listened without surprise as Greene recounted the river, Keller's death, and Hamilton's speech. His eyes watered, not from sickness, but disappointment. "I feared this," Franklin whispered. "The same geometry that can free men can bind them if the proportions are reversed." He pressed a trembling hand over Greene's. "Keep the compass. Bury it if you must. The Republic will need it again when memory fails." He coughed, then added almost to himself, "Liberty and order are twins, Nathaniel, but only one should rule." The betrayal in ink. Days later, drafts of the Provisional Constitution circulated through Congress. The structure mirrored Franklin's cipher precisely. 13 divisions, harmonic ratios of representation, numeric balances of power. But every ratio had been shifted slightly, enough to tilt the system toward central authority. Marianne held the parchment beside Franklin's original calculations. "See the alteration?" she said. "He's changed the ratio from 1 to 1 to 1 to 1 to 2 to 3. Power will cascade upward." Greene nodded grimly. "They've coded inequality into the bones of government." The last equation. Greene decided there was only one way to counter it: expose the cipher itself. If the public understood that their founding design had been built on hidden mathematics, perhaps they would demand transparency. He spent nights copying Franklin's diagrams by candlelight, reducing the equations into plain language, a people's cipher, simple enough to print as a pamphlet. But before he could distribute it, the printing shop was raided, the presses smashed, the owner vanished. A single scrap of proof sheet survived, later found among Greene's effects. It bore only a line of text: "When order forgets balance, liberty becomes its ghost." Excerpt from Greene's diary, June 1782. "Hamilton's charter will pass. Franklin is fading. I will hide the compass in the old bell tower.
within the crack of the bell itself. Let the symbol of liberty guard the code of it.
Epilogue fragment. 2 months later, Franklin was dead, and the Double Eagle Society had melted back into the fabric of the new nation. Hamilton's plan evolved, softened by compromise, until what remained became the Constitution we know. But beneath its elegant checks and balances lingered traces of the old cipher, the unseen geometry of power. Greene disappeared from record after 1783. Some claimed he sailed to France with Marion Duval, others that he wandered west again, following the rivers. Yet when the Liberty Bell cracked for the final time in 1846, workmen reported finding a tiny brass device lodged deep within the fissure. A compass, tarnished but intact, engraved with 3 Latin words, Libertas in numeris, to be continued. To be continued. Next chapter. Chapter 9, Echoes in the Republic. A leap forward to 1795, where a young surveyor in the new capital of Washington discovers strange geometric instructions embedded in Pierre L'Enfant's city plan, evidence that the Cipher of Liberty still guides the shape of America. Chapter 9, Echoes in the Republic. Washington City, 1795. Morning light spilled over a landscape of half-finished avenues and scaffoldings. The capital was still more dream than place. Muddy streets carved into the wilderness, columns without roofs, workers hammering ideals into brick and stone. Among them was a young surveyor named Jonathan Hale, barely 24, with a pocket compass that once had belonged, he claimed, to his great-uncle Nathaniel Greene. He had never spoken of that inheritance aloud. He barely believed it himself. Yet as he paced the grid lines of Pierre L'Enfant's new city plan, he felt the weight of that brass instrument against his heart and wondered why its needle sometimes trembled near the river. The geometry of a capital. L'Enfant's design was revolutionary. Grand diagonal avenues crossing a rational grid, open vistas meant to symbolize democracy's transparency. But as Hale checked the survey markers one dusk, he noticed something the plans did not explain. Certain intersections, Pennsylvania Avenue and Maryland, Massachusetts and North Capitol, formed a perfect 13-pointed star when mapped together. He recalled Franklin's words from a scrap his family kept framed. The people are the number. Was it chance, or the same cipher reborn in stone? A stranger with a seal. That night, a carriage rolled up from Georgetown, bearing a passenger in a dark coat. He introduced himself as Colonel Edmund Vance, an official from the Treasury Department. "You are Hale, the surveyor?" "Yes, Colonel. I understand you've been adjusting the markers. We prefer them left as they are." Vance's tone was polite, but his gaze was sharp. He laid a hand on the map spread across his table. His ring bore the faint outline of a twin-headed eagle. Hale's stomach turned. "The alignment is inaccurate, sir. The angles are precisely as intended," Vance interrupted. "Our founding geometry is delicate. Some things need not be perfect to be eternal." When he left, Hale noticed the ring had left a faint impression on the parchment. A double circle crossed by a single line, a code or a warning.
The hidden letter. Weeks later, a storm swept through the half-built city, flooding trenches and tearing tents from their moorings. As Hale helped dig out a collapsed embankment, his shovel struck wood, a small waterproof chest. Inside was a letter, its seal broken but legible, written in the fluid hand of Benjamin Franklin himself. The parchment was dated 1782. "If this compass finds new hands, know that the pattern is unfinished. The balance of liberty and order must renew with every generation, else one will devour the other." At the bottom were coordinates, numbers that corresponded, Hale realized, to the very center of the city's plan. Capitol Hill. Capitol Hill, midnight. By torchlight, Hale followed the figures to a mound where masons had begun laying the foundation of the Capitol. In a shallow pit beneath the first cornerstone, he found a cavity already prepared, lined with lead. Within it lay another brass plate, smaller, but bearing the same inscription as the compass. Libertas in numeris. He traced the grooves with his thumb, feeling the pulse of history. He imagined the builders who had placed it there, perhaps under secret instruction, perhaps believing they were blessing the nation with eternal equilibrium. Above him, the wind whipped through the empty frame of the rising dome. He thought of his great uncle, of Franklin, of the invisible war fought not with muskets, but with symbols. Maybe this is how freedom survives, hidden in the pattern, until someone remembers to look. Excerpt from Hale's Field Journal, 1795. The city grows like a compass drawn in earth. Every avenue points towards something older than law, some geometry of conscience. Whether the double eagles still watch, I cannot tell, but the design remains, waiting to be read. To be continued. Next chapter. Chapter 10. The Silent Star. In which Jonathan Hale discovers that the geometric design of Washington, D.C. hides an unfinished segment, a line pointing not to the capital, but west toward the frontier, and that completing it will reveal the final intention of the Cipher of Liberty. Chapter 10. The Silent Star. Washington City, 1796. By late summer, the Capitol had begun to shimmer with marble and dust. The great avenues lay open under the heat, and scaffolds gripped the half-finished dome of the Capitol like the bones of an enormous bird. Jonathan Hale kept returning to one intersection, where Pennsylvania Avenue cut across the new line of the mall, because every survey he made showed the same small error, a deviation of exactly 3.5 degrees west from L'Enfant's printed plan. No builder could explain it. No compass would hold steady there. And at noon, when the sun stood over the Potomac, the shadows of the monuments formed the faint outline of a 13-pointed star, one arm missing, broken toward the west.
In an old-fashioned hand. The star was never meant to close. Its final ray points to the frontier, where liberty renews itself or dies. Follow it and remember, the compass chooses, not the hand. Tucked beneath was a scrap of parchment, brown with age, marked with Franklin's ciphered ratios. Hale recognized the same harmonics Franklin had used to balance his electrical experiments. The missing arm of the star extended precisely 3.5 degrees west-northwest toward the mountains of western Virginia. He decided to go. The Western Line. Travel west from the Capitol was a battle with mud and memory. Stagecoaches jolted through ruts, taverns offered whiskey stronger than roofs, and every ridge carried rumors of new rebellions, the Whiskey Boys, the farmers who swore the revolution had changed nothing. Hale measured as he rode. The line from the Capitol cut clean across Maryland into the Alleghenies, tracing the same route that Nathaniel Greene had taken 13 years before. At each night's camp, he compared his bearings with the old brass compass. Its needle never wavered. The House of Glass. Near the Monongahela River stood the ruins of an estate once owned by a French scientist who had worked with Franklin. Locals called it the House of Glass because its windows, long shattered, had once been made of crystal lenses instead of panes. Inside, Hale found a floor mosaic half buried in dust, a perfect circle divided by radiating lines. In the center, the faint carving of the double eagle, its heads eroded, its wings enclosing the same Latin words that haunted his family. Libertas in numeris. But beneath it, newly etched and unmistakably American, was a second phrase, res nova incipit. A new thing begins. Someone had been here after Greene. The man in the smoke. As Hale knelt to trace the symbols, the sound of flint striking steel broke the silence. A candle flared. In the doorway stood an old man wrapped in a soldier's cloak, white-haired, face carved by years. "You've found the western arm," the stranger said. "Good. I wondered who would." "Who are you?" Hale demanded. "A keeper, nothing more. They called me Vance once, though that name has worn thin." The title chilled him. The Double Eagles? Vance shook his head slowly. "Once, but the society fractured when the war ended. Some of us believed the cipher should guide men quietly, others wanted it buried. Franklin feared both. He hid the last ratio here in glass, where light would complete the star when the Republic was ready." He held up a sliver of crystal, etched with minute lines. "Place this over the compass at noon, and you'll see the last direction." The final alignment. At high noon the next day, Hale set the compass on the mosaic. He placed the crystal lens above it. Sunlight struck the glass, refracted through the engravings, and cast a single beam onto the western wall. There, revealed in light, appeared coordinates, numbers faint but precise, leading beyond the mountains, deeper into the Ohio Valley. Vance watched in silence. "That is where your great-uncle ended his road. He called it the Silent Star. Follow it, and you'll find what the Republic forgot." When Hale looked up again, the old man was gone, the candle still smoking. Excerpt from Hale's journal, October 1796. "If liberty is a pattern, then its final point lies somewhere beyond the reach of politics, perhaps a design etched into the land itself. I leave at dawn to trace the last arm of the star. The compass hums as if alive." To be continued. Next chapter, Chapter 11, The Frontier Cipher, in which Jonathan Hale crosses the Appalachians and discovers a hidden settlement founded by the last followers of the Committee of the Unwritten Constitution, men and women who guard the living equation that once defined the nation's freedom.